Picture this: a roaring crowd of 50,000 voices echoing beneath the Roman sun, the air thick with anticipation as gladiators clash in the arena below. The Colosseum stands as a colossal monument to human ambition, its towering arches casting shadows over a spectacle of wonder and brutality. This was more than just a stadium. It was the beating heart of an empire, a stage where history unfolded in blood, sand, and unimaginable grandeur. But beneath its fame lies a world of secrets, stories so astonishing they blur the line between legend and reality. Did you know this ancient marvel could transform into a flooded battleground, hosting epic naval battles with real ships, or that its walls once echoed with the cries of exotic animals from across the known world? For centuries, the Colosseum has captivated imaginations, yet so much of its true story remains hidden in the whispers of time. Today, we're peeling back the layers of myth to uncover 30 unbelievable facts that will forever change how you see this iconic wonder. From the engineering genius that allowed its floor to vanish in minutes, to the dark rituals that unfolded beneath its surface, each revelation pulls you deeper into the awe-inspiring world of ancient Rome. This isn't just a journey through stone and history. It's a plunge into the spectacle, innovation, and sheer audacity that defined an era. What if I told you the Colosseum's secrets rival even the wildest Hollywood dramas? Imagine emperors orchestrating elaborate fantasies, exotic beasts prowling beneath trapdoors, and crowds so vast they could fill modern stadiums twice over. This is where history thrills, shocks, and defies belief. So settle in, because by the time we're done, you'll see the Colosseum not as a relic of the past, but as a living, breathing testament to the ingenuity and excess of a civilization that dared to dream on a scale we can barely fathom. Ready to step into the arena? Let's begin. Think the name Colosseum has always defined this legendary structure. Think again. When Emperor Vespasian first commissioned its construction in the year 72, Rome knew it by a very different title, the Flavian Amphitheater, a grand tribute to the imperial dynasty that built it. But history has a way of rewriting labels, and this one shifted thanks to an unexpected neighbor. Towering beside the amphitheater stood the Colossus of Nero, a 120-foot bronze statue of the infamous emperor gleaming in the sunlight. After Nero's death, the statue was repurposed, its face altered to resemble the sun god Sol, yet its staggering scale never faded from public memory. Over time, locals began referring to the nearby arena as the place by the Colossus, until the nickname simply stuck. The original statue may have vanished, melted down, or toppled by earthquakes centuries later, but its legacy lingers in every syllable of the name we use today. So when you say Colosseum, you're not just evoking gladiators and grandeur, you're echoing a chain of history that turned a fallen emperor's vanity into the accidental namesake of the ancient world's most iconic stage. The very ground beneath the Colosseum hides a dramatic act of political theater, one that literally reshaped Rome's landscape. Before those towering stone walls rose, this spot held Nero's extravagant private lake, the centerpiece of his sprawling golden palace complex. After Nero's fall, Emperor Vespasian faced a choice: let the tyrant's vanity project stand or rewrite the city's memory in stone. He chose revolution. Teams of laborers worked day and night, not just draining the lake but filling it with layer upon layer of compacted earth and concrete, a foundation strong enough to support 60,000 spectators. Imagine the audacity, transforming what was once a symbol of imperial excess into the people's arena, where citizens could watch their rulers lavish entertainment on them instead. But here's the twist: that reclaimed land was notoriously unstable. To prevent their grand amphitheater from sinking into the muck, Roman engineers devised a radical solution: a labyrinth of drainage tunnels beneath the arena floor, channeling groundwater away while acting as the Colosseum's hidden circulatory system. These weren't just functional, they became the backbone of the spectacles above, allowing trapdoors, lifts, and even flooding mechanisms to operate seamlessly. It's a staggering duality. Vespasian's engineers turned the site's greatest weakness into its most ingenious feature. Where Nero once hosted private parties on gleaming waters, now waves of crowds roared as ships did battle in that very same space, the basin momentarily resurrected for epic sea reenactments. Every game, every cheer, every drop of spilled sand was a calculated insult to Nero's ghost, proof that even the mightiest emperors could be upstaged by the will of the people and the brilliance of Roman innovation. When we marvel at modern skyscrapers rising over a decade, the Colosseum's construction timeline seems ripped from legend. In just 8 short years, from 72 to 80 AD, this architectural titan erupted from the earth, its skeleton of travertine stone and concrete defying the limits of ancient technology. Picture 60,000 pairs of hands, Jewish slaves captured after Rome's siege of Jerusalem, hauling blocks heavier than elephants, carving arches with precision that still baffles engineers today. No cranes, no power tools, just human toil and ingenuity scaling heights that would dominate Rome's skyline for millennia. But the real shock isn't just the speed, it's the logistics. Modern stadiums of comparable scale take twice as long despite our steel beams and hydraulic lifts. The Romans had no blueprints as we know them, no digital modeling to predict stresses. Instead, they relied on modular design, identical arches repeated 80 times, each slotting together like a stone puzzle. Teams worked in shifts under torchlight, quarrying, transporting, and assembling simultaneously, a symphony of labor where delays meant imperial displeasure. And all while perfecting innovations like the Hypogeum's labyrinth below, where elevators powered by pulley systems would later launch beasts into the arena. This breakneck pace came at a brutal human cost. Historians estimate a worker died every 10 days from falls, exhaustion, or accidents, yet the project never stalled. The Colosseum wasn't just built, it was conquered, a military-style campaign against time and gravity. When Titus inaugurated it in 80 AD with 100 straight days of games, the message was clear. Rome didn't just construct monuments, it willed them into being. Every stone whispers a paradox, a masterpiece of engineering born from oppression, a timeless symbol forged in the fire of urgency. Even today's massive sports arenas struggle to move crowds as efficiently as the Colosseum did 2,000 years ago. With seating for up to 80,000 roaring spectators, a number that rivals modern football stadiums, this ancient marvel functioned with clockwork precision thanks to an ingenious system of social hierarchy and engineering. The tiers of seating weren't just about comfort, they were a mirror of Roman society itself. Senators lounged on marble benches closest to the action, while merchants and citizens filled the middle levels, and slaves and women were relegated to the steep upper sections beneath the scorching sun. What truly set the Colosseum apart was its breathtaking crowd control. Forget paper tickets, patrons clutched numbered terracotta shards, their admission passes etched with precise directions to one of 76 public entrances. Each arch bore a carved numeral matching the shards, funneling spectators directly to their designated section like an ancient GPS. 4 grand gates were reserved for VIPs, emperors, vestal virgins, and gladiators making their dramatic entrances. But here's the stroke of genius, those same 80 arches doubled as exits. When the games ended, the entire crowd could empty the arena in minutes, a feat modern venues still study in awe. Corridors called vomitoria, Latin for spew forth, channeled human rivers outward without bottlenecks. Picture this system operating without speakers, digital signs, or security cameras, just pure architectural foresight. Every detail, from the stepped walkways to the shaded porticos, was calculated to prevent chaos, and the ticketing, a masterclass in fairness. Free shards were distributed through neighborhoods and guilds, ensuring no one was turned away from Rome's greatest spectacle. The Colosseum wasn't just a building, It was a microcosm of empire where even crowd management became a performance as finely tuned as the battles in the sand below. Those sweltering Roman afternoons could turn the Colosseum into an oven, but the ancients had a solution centuries ahead of its time: the velarium, a retractable awning so vast it could shade 55,000 spectators from the Mediterranean sun. Picture a canvas sail larger than a football field, suspended nearly 200 feet above the arena floor, rippling like a second sky over the roaring crowds. This wasn't just fabric draped on poles. It was a feat of engineering so precise it required an entire navy detachment to operate. Specialized sailors from the Roman fleet, accustomed to handling massive ship sails, were stationed in the attic level of the Colosseum. With ropes woven from Egyptian hemp and a pulley system of wooden gears, they could unfurl or retract the velarium in minutes, timing their movements to the shifting sunlight. The design mimicked a ship's rigging, with radial ropes fanning out from the center like spokes on a wheel, distributing tension evenly to prevent collapse. And just like modern stadium roofs, the awning wasn't fixed. Sections could be adjusted independently, allowing patches of sunlight for dramatic effect during twilight games. But here's what truly astonishes: the velarium didn't just block heat, it amplified sound. The angled fabric acted as an acoustic reflector, bouncing the crowd's chants and the clashing of swords back downward, intensifying the arena's electric atmosphere. Archaeologists have even found counterweight pits in the Colosseum's upper walls, suggesting the system used sandbags similar to theater rigging today to stabilize the canvas against gusty winds. While modern venues like Wimbledon or the Dallas Cowboys Stadium boast retractable roofs, none rely on pure manpower like Rome's ancient marvel. The velarium was more than shade. It was a symbol of imperial mastery over nature, proving even the sun itself could be commanded to bow before the spectacle below. The Colosseum's arena floor wasn't just a stage for gladiators. It could transform into a sprawling naval battleground in a matter of hours. These mock sea fights, called naumatia, were Rome's most jaw-dropping spectacles, where emperors recreated historic clashes with real warships, combatants, and even artificial islands. Imagine the gasp of the crowd as the sand disappeared beneath a sudden flood of water, revealing a shallow lake deep enough to float triremes, the same ships that once ruled the Mediterranean. The secret lay beneath the hypogeum, where slaves worked tirelessly on a hydraulic system as sophisticated as any modern plumbing network. Massive lead pipes funneled water from the Aqua Claudia aqueduct into a network of underground channels. When opened, these could fill the arena with over 5 feet of water in under 7 hours, a staggering feat for ancient engineering. But the real genius was in the drainage. Emperor Titus, determined to outdo his predecessors, engineered a system that could empty the flooded arena just as swiftly, using sluice gates and gravity-fed tunnels to return the water to the Tiber River. This allowed the Colosseum to alternate between naval battles and traditional gladiatorial combat in the same week. The battles themselves were anything but staged. Historical accounts describe Titus's inaugural games in 80 AD, where he reenacted the Battle of Salamis with 3,000 combatants and fully manned ships. Prisoners of war and condemned criminals were forced to fight to the death, their struggles mirroring the real naval clashes that built Rome's empire. Some reenactments even included scaled-down replicas of coastal towns, set aflame during the spectacle to mimic besieged cities, but the cost was staggering. Staging a single naumatia required diverting Rome's water supply for days, not to mention the risk of structural damage to the arena's delicate substructure. By the 3rd century, these spectacles vanished, likely because the hypogeum's expansion for animal hunts made flooding impossible. Yet for a fleeting era, the Colosseum became the world's most audacious naval theater, where emperors didn't just entertain the masses, they bent rivers to their will. Beneath the roar of gladiatorial combat, another spectacle sent Roman crowds into frenzy: the venations or animal hunts where the rarest beasts of the known world met their end in orchestrated slaughter. These weren't just local wolves or boars. Emperors competed to parade Africa's lions, Asian tigers, and even creatures most Romans had only heard of in myths. Picture the shock as a rhinoceros, an animal so alien it was thought to be a legend, charged across the sand, or the gasps as elephants, their hides painted in vibrant colors, trumpeted before being felled by hunters in gilded armor. The numbers defy belief. During the Colosseum's 100-day inauguration under Emperor Titus, historical records claim 9,000 animals were butchered. A later series of games hosted by Trajan saw 11,000 beasts slain, including giraffes from the Nile, crocodiles hauled from the Euphrates, and leopards from the Persian highlands. Entire ecosystems were emptied to feed Rome's hunger for the exotic. Ships bearing cages of panthers and bears became so common that Ostria's port had special docks for unloading them. But here's what's even more chilling. These hunts weren't chaotic free-for-alls. They were meticulously staged theater. Some animals were trained to perform tricks before their execution. Bears danced on hot metal plates. Elephants knelt in mock surrender. Others were pitted against each other in unnatural duels, a bull versus a python or a lion against a crocodile. The hypogeum's trapdoors allowed beasts to erupt into the arena as if by magic, while hidden ramps created the illusion of jungles sprouting from the sand. The cost was astronomical. Importing a single African lion could equal a soldier's annual salary, and many animals died in transit from stress or malnutrition. Yet emperors considered it a worthy investment. Every carcass was a flex of imperial reach, proof that Rome's dominions stretched to the edges of the earth. Some species, like North Africa's Barbary lion, were hunted to local extinction just to satisfy the arena's demand. And then there were the humans. Besharii, specially trained hunters, faced these animals with nothing but spears or cloaks for defense. Others were condemned criminals, sent unarmed to be torn apart as moral lessons. The line between execution and entertainment blurred. When one man killed a lion with his bare hands, the crowd demanded his freedom, only for the next prisoner to be mauled moments later. The venations weren't just blood sport, they were geopolitical theater. Each exotic corpse symbolized conquered frontiers, turning the Colosseum's sand into a map of empire written in claws and fangs. Long before zoos existed, Rome's masses gaped at nature's marvels, then cheered as they were erased from the earth. Beneath the Colosseum's blood-stained sand lay a hidden world of mechanical marvels. The hypogeum, an underground labyrinth where slaves worked in darkness to orchestrate the spectacles above. This wasn't just a basement, it was a stage manager's dream, packed with trapdoors, ramps, and elevators capable of launching lions into the arena or making gladiators appear as if by magic. Picture a grid of 80 vertical shafts, each housing a wooden platform lifted by hemp ropes and powered by teams of slaves turning massive capstans. With a signal from above, a single cage could rise from the depths in seconds, its snarling occupant bursting through a canvas-covered hatch to the crowd's delight. The engineering was breathtakingly precise. Ancient sources describe how the hypogeum's pulley systems could hoist a 400-pound lion or even a full-grown bull straight into the arena, their sudden arrivals timed for maximum shock. But the real genius lay in the synchronization. During elaborate beast hunts, multiple trapdoors might open simultaneously, creating the illusion of a jungle erupting from the sand. Some lifts were even disguised as rocky outcrops or trees, allowing hunters to ambush animals in staged scenarios. Behind the scenes, the labor was brutal. Teams of slaves, often prisoners of war, toiled in the hypogeum's stifling heat, their muscles straining against the weight of animals and stage sets. The whip cracks of overseers timed their movements, ensuring no trapdoor misfired during a performance. And when the games ended, these same crews hauled carcasses and debris back below, resetting the stage for the next day's horrors. Perhaps most chilling were the surprise executions. Condemned prisoners might stand on marked stones, unaware they stood atop a hidden lift. At the emperor's signal, the floor would vanish, dropping them into a pit of starved beasts waiting below, a macabre twist the Romans called the descent to Hades. Yet for all its cruelty, the hypogeum was a masterpiece of stagecraft. Modern theaters still use its basic principles: trapdoors, counterweights, timed reveals, proof that the Colosseum's dark heart still beats in entertainment today. Only now, the slaves have been replaced by hydraulics and the beasts by actors. The spectacle remains, the suffering mercifully does not. Just steps away from the Colosseum's roaring crowds, beneath the dust of modern Rome, lies the Ludus Magnus, a gladiator factory where warriors were forged in blood and discipline. This sprawling complex wasn't just a training ground. It was a high-stakes boarding school where the empire's most celebrated killers lived, trained, and prepared for their moment in the spotlight. Connected to the Colosseum by a secret underground tunnel, the Ludus Magnus buzzed with an energy as intense as the arena itself. Imagine passing through its gates, the clang of wooden swords against shields, the grunts of men sparring under the watchful eyes of trainers, the scent of sweat and leather mingling with the iron tang of weapons. Gladiators weren't just fighters, they were athletes, celebrities, and commodities rolled into one. Their training was relentless, a daily grind of combat drills, strength conditioning, and choreographed battle sequences designed to thrill spectators. Different classes of gladiators specialized in distinct styles. The Murmillo with his heavy shield and helmet, the nimble Retiarius wielding a trident and net, the Threeks with his curved blade. Each had to master not just survival but showmanship. A good gladiator knew how to draw out a fight, play to the crowd, and make his victories, or even his defeats, look spectacular. But life in the Ludus Magnus wasn't all glory. These men, and sometimes women, were slaves, prisoners of war, or desperate volunteers who traded freedom for a shot at fame. Their barracks were Spartan, cramped cells with straw bedding, communal meals of barley gruel and beans, and the ever-present threat of the whip. Yet for those who excelled, the rewards could be staggering. The most successful gladiators earned fortunes in prize money, adoring fans, and even political influence. Graffiti found on Pompeii's walls reads like ancient fan mail, with messages like "Celadus, the Thracian hero of the girls," scrawled beside crude drawings of their favorite fighters. The tunnel linking the Ludus to the Colosseum was their final walk, a dimly lit corridor where legends were made or broken. Before stepping into the sunlight, each gladiator would pause beneath a statue of Nemesis, goddess of fate, offering a silent prayer. Some emerged to roars of approval, others never returned. Today, all that remains of this brutal proving ground are a few sunken ruins near the Colosseum's eastern side. But if you listen closely, the echoes of clashing steel and the ghosts of Rome's most infamous stars still whisper beneath the modern city's hum. The roaring crowds of the Colosseum didn't just cheer for men sometimes. The most shocking spectacles came from women who stepped onto the sand as equals. Gladiatrices, as they were called, were rare but far from mythical. Historical records and even stone carvings depict them mid-combat, muscles taut beneath armored straps, faces set in the same determined snarls as their male counterparts. Emperor Domitian, always eager to push boundaries, took particular delight in staging nocturnal bouts where these female warriors clashed, sometimes against each other, sometimes against dwarves, the flickering torchlight turning the arena into a surreal theater of the unexpected. Imagine the gasps as these women emerged, their identities often obscured by helmets, their presence alone upending Rome's rigid gender norms. They weren't just novelties, many trained in the same grueling Ludus system as male gladiators, mastering the trident, sword, and net. A 1st-century marble relief found in Halicarnassus shows two gladiatrices named Amazon and Achilia, their shields raised, their bodies locked in combat, proof that their stories were celebrated, not erased. Yet their existence was controversial. Some senators sneered at the spectacle, calling it a disgrace to Roman dignity. The poet Juvenal mocked men who'd let their wives train in gladiator schools, his words dripping with scorn. But the crowds, they adored them. The rarity of female fighters made their appearances electrifying, a forbidden thrill wrapped in the veneer of imperial approval. Domitian's nighttime exhibitions leaned into this taboo, the darkness adding an air of secrecy to matches that daylight might have judged too harshly. Here's what's even more fascinating. Not all gladiatrices were slaves or prisoners. Some were free-born women, aristocratic daredevils chasing fame or fortune. Others may have been priestesses of war cults, their battles part ritual, part entertainment. The line between performer and warrior blurred under the Colosseum's gaze, where a woman's victory could earn her the same roaring ovation as any man. But their legacy was deliberately buried. As Rome's moralists gained influence, female gladiators vanished from the record, their statues toppled, their stories scrubbed clean. Only scattered fragments remain, a carving here, a passing mention in a chronicle there, whispers of a time when the arena's sand was stirred by just as many sandals as hobnailed boots. The Colosseum's sand wasn't just stained with the blood of gladiators, it absorbed the terror of those condemned to die in Rome's most grotesque public spectacles. Among the cruelest fates was damnatio ad bestias, the condemnation to beasts, where prisoners, often Christians, slaves, or political enemies, were thrown defenseless before starved lions, bears, or packs of ravenous dogs. These weren't quick executions, they were theatrical displays of imperial power, designed to humiliate as much as to kill. Imagine the jeers of the crowd as a bound man was pushed into the arena, the slow, taunting release of a single panther from its cage, the agonized screams as claws and fangs tore flesh in deliberate, drawn-out brutality. Historical accounts paint horrors beyond comprehension. In one notorious game under Emperor Titus, a group of Christian martyrs was sewn into animal skins and mauled by hounds, their deaths framed as mythological reenactments, Actaeon devoured by his own hunting dogs. Another record describes criminals crucified around the arena's perimeter, their crosses tilted inward so the audience could watch beasts climb the wood to reach them. Even children weren't spared. During Trajan's reign, dwarves and young captives were pitted against elephants in grotesque dwarf hunts. But here's the twist that chills the bones. Many of these executions were religious performances. Christians refusing to worship Roman gods became favorite targets. Their deaths were staged as morality plays, lions representing divine wrath, the victim's steadfast faith heightening the drama. The crowd's thirst for suffering twisted into something darker than entertainment. It became ritual. Yet in a staggering reversal of fate, the Colosseum's legacy with Christianity didn't end in bloodshed. By the Middle Ages, the arena had transformed into a sacred site. The very sands where martyrs perished were declared holy ground, with Pope Benedict Roman XIV consecrating it in the 18th century as a shrine to those who died for their faith. Today, a simple cross stands in the hypogeum, casting shadows over the tunnels where beasts once waited. Every Good Friday, the Pope leads a procession here, turning what was once a theater of death into a monument of resurrection. The Colosseum's arc from slaughterhouse to sanctuary proves history's strangest irony. The place that once mocked faith now begs its forgiveness. The Colosseum's spectacles weren't limited to sword clashes and beast hunts. Some of its most surreal performances were elaborate mythological reenactments, where history and fantasy blurred in a haze of pyrotechnics and doomed actors. Picture this: the arena transforms into Mount Olympus, its slopes constructed from wooden scaffolding and painted canvas, while prisoners forced to play gods and heroes meet agonizing fates ripped straight from ancient legends. One notorious account describes a condemned man dressed as Hercules, his tunic soaked in pitch and resin, wrestling a lion, likely a costumed gladiator, before being set ablaze mid-performance, a horrifying echo of the hero's fiery death on Mount Ota. The crowd's cheers would mingle with the stench of burning flesh, the spectacle designed to shock and awe in equal measure. These productions were Rome's blockbuster theater, complete with trapdoors for sudden godly apparitions, hidden levers to simulate earthquakes, and even artificial rivers dyed red to mimic blood. Emperors like Nero and Domitian spared no expense, commissioning movable sets that could collapse on cue or erupt in flames during scenes of divine punishment. One gruesome record tells of a reenactment of Orpheus charming beasts with his lyre, only for the actor to be torn apart by a real bear the moment his music stopped, subverting the myth for brutal surprise. What chills the blood is how these performances weaponized storytelling. Condemned criminals weren't just executed, they were cast as villains from Roman lore, rebels like Prometheus or traitors like Icarus, their deaths framed as moral lessons. When Titus staged the destruction of Pompeii, he used catapults to fling flaming projectiles across the arena, while prisoners playing fleeing citizens were crushed by collapsing towers. The message was clear: defy Rome's might, and even the gods will script your doom. Yet for all their cruelty, these spectacles revealed staggering ingenuity. The Colosseum's hypogeum became a backstage labyrinth, with slaves operating pulleys to fly deities over the arena on invisible wires or flooding sections to replicate the Straits of Messina for naval reenactments. Some scholars believe the infamous Blue Whale incident, where Emperor Claudius supposedly flooded the arena to display a massive sea creature, was actually a mechanized prop, its ribs articulated to simulate breathing before devouring shipwrecked prisoners. The darkest irony: many in the audience knew these myths as sacred texts. To watch them play out with real screams and very real deaths twisted religion into something grotesque, a reminder that in Rome, even the divine bowed to the emperor's will. Today's HOLLYWOOD Chinese letter pale in comparison to the Colosseum's lethal special effects, where the only CGI was the sound of a man's last, unscripted cry. Hidden beneath the arena's blood-stained sand, the hypogeum wasn't just a backstage, it was a mechanical wonder, a shadowy underworld where slaves and beasts awaited their cue with military precision. Excavations in the 19th century peeled back centuries of debris, revealing a labyrinth so complex, it rewrote history's understanding of how the Colosseum's spectacles unfolded. Picture this: a network of tunnels and chambers spanning 2 levels, lit only by flickering oil lamps where the scent of damp stone mingled with the musk of caged animals. 80 vertical shafts ran like veins from the depths to the arena floor, each housing a wooden elevator system capable of hoisting a bull or a dozen armed gladiators into view in seconds. The discovery stunned archaeologists. Before the hypogeum's excavation, scholars assumed the Colosseum's events were relatively simplistic: gladiators marching through gates, animals herded across open sand. But these tunnels revealed a level of stagecraft rivaling modern theaters. Trapdoors disguised with painted canvas could make a lion appear to materialize from thin air. Rotating platforms allowed entire sets a replica forest, a mock temple to pivot into place beneath the sand. The most chilling find: a series of counterweighted platforms dubbed Hell's Elevators, capable of launching bears or prisoners 10 feet into the air mid-performance, ensuring every entrance was a spectacle. What truly transformed our understanding, though, was the hypogeum's clockwork efficiency. Marks on the walls showed where slaves tracked performers' movements with chalk, timing lifts to the rhythm of the crowd's cheers. Grainy 19th century sketches capture the moment workers first uncovered a graffiti-covered service corridor, crude tallies counting animals released, a gladiator's scrawled prayer to Mars, even a child's drawing of a lion etched by some long-dead laborer's hand. But the hypogeum wasn't just functional, it was psychological warfare. Prisoners awaiting execution were held near roaring beasts to amplify their terror. A narrow corridor called the Gate of Death funneled slain gladiators' bodies straight to a disposal pit, ensuring the audience never saw the cleanup. And in a macabre twist, some shafts were designed to amplify sound. A lion's growl or a dying man's scream would echo upward, unnerving the crowd before the beast even appeared. Modern archaeologists using laser scans have mapped the hypogeum's remnants, revealing how its design evolved. Early versions relied on simple ramps, but by the 3rd century, Emperor Commodus, a fanatical gladiator himself, demanded hydraulic lifts capable of raising him into the arena like a god ascending from the underworld. Today, walking its excavated passages, you can still see the grooves where cages slid and the notches where pulley ropes frayed the stone. The hypogeum didn't just support the games, it engineered their magic, proving Rome's genius for turning brutality into breathtaking theater. Emperor Commodus didn't just watch the Colosseum's games, he hijacked them, turning the arena into his personal vanity stage in ways that would make even the most egotistical modern celebrities blush. History remembers him as the ruler who fancied himself a god among gladiators, but his antics went far beyond mere participation. Picture the scene: Rome's most powerful man, draped in a lion skin cloak like Hercules, stepping onto the sand not to lead but to brawl. Except every fight was a meticulously staged farce. Opponents were ordered to wield wooden swords, their blades swapped last minute to ensure they couldn't harm him. Any gladiator foolish enough to land a hit found themselves swiftly executed after the match, a grim warning to others not to spoil the emperor's fantasy. The prizes he demanded for these rigged victories bordered on parody. A single appearance could earn him 1,000,000 sesterces, enough to feed 10,000 Roman families for a month, paid directly from the imperial treasury back to himself. But coins weren't enough. Commodus craved immortality in gold. He commissioned a staggering 30-foot statue of himself as Hercules, muscles gleaming, club in hand, placed just outside the Colosseum so crowds would see it before entering. The message was clear. This wasn't just an emperor playing warrior. This was a man convinced he'd transcended mortality, yet the true absurdity lay in his battles. Historical accounts describe how he'd slaughter disabled animals or prisoners tied to posts, then bask in applause as if he'd bested legendary beasts. On one infamous day, he allegedly killed 100 bears by javelin from a raised platform, calling it a hunt. Senators, forced to attend, cheered through gritted teeth, knowing refusal meant execution. Even the gladiator's sacred oath to endure being burned, bound, beaten, and slain by the sword was twisted to his whims. Commodus demanded fighters swear allegiance not to their trainers, but to him personally, turning the ludus into a cult of personality. The Colosseum's sand became his playground for psychological terror. He'd enter the arena dressed as Mercury, wings strapped to his boots, then decapitated ostriches and tossed their heads into the senatorial seats, a not-so-subtle threat about who might lose theirs next. Some historians believe his antics weren't just madness but calculated theater. By humiliating Rome's elite and elevating himself to demigod status, Commodus eroded centuries of political tradition, replacing them with sheer spectacle. In the end, his ego proved his undoing. The same senators who applauded his victories plotted his assassination, strangling him in his bath. But the Colosseum's legacy still bears his mark, not as a hero, but as a cautionary tale of power unchecked by reality. The lesson: even emperors aren't immune to the oldest rule of the arena. Every performance, no matter how grand, must eventually face the judgment of the crowd. The glory days of the Colosseum didn't fade with one dramatic collapse. They crumbled slowly, victim to neglect, nature, and the very hands that once built it. After Rome's fall in the 5th century, the arena's purpose evaporated like morning mist. No longer the heart of imperial spectacle, it became a hollow shell, its corridors echoing with the footsteps of squatters rather than gladiators. Earthquakes in 442 and 508 shattered entire sections of the outer ring, sending massive travertine blocks tumbling like dominoes. But the real theft wasn't from Mother Nature. it was from popes and princes who saw the Colosseum not as a monument to preserve, but as a quarry ripe for the taking. Imagine teams of medieval laborers chiseling away at those sun-bleached walls, prying stones loose to build palaces, churches, and even the foundations of St. Peter's Basilica. The same blocks that once bore the weight of emperors now line the floors of Renaissance Rome's grandest projects. An estimated 100,000 cubic feet of marble vanished enough to construct a small town. Entire staircases were dismantled, statues melted down for lime, and iron clamps pried out, leaving the pockmarked scars still visible today. Yet here's the twist: this plundering might have saved the Colosseum. While other ancient arenas were obliterated, the Colosseum's sturdy skeleton made it too useful to fully destroy. By the 16th century, it had morphed into a bizarre hybrid of ruin and resource, part fortress for the Frangipani family, part makeshift church, even a temporary wool factory. Its arches housed workshops, its vaults became stables. The hypogeum flooded, creating an accidental marsh where Romans harvested medicinal plants, the most haunting transformation. Its role as a sacred site. As twilight fell, locals whispered that the ghosts of martyrs haunted the corridors. By the 1700s, Pope Benedict XIV declared it consecrated ground, halting further stone theft. What emperors built for bloodshed, the church reclaimed for prayer, a redemption as unlikely as the Colosseum's survival. Today, when you gaze up at that jagged silhouette, you're not just seeing a ruin. You're witnessing a palimpsest of history where every missing stone tells a story of resilience. By the time the 18th century dawned, the Colosseum stood as a hollowed-out relic, its stones plundered for palaces and its grandeur fading into myth. But in a twist of history, the very arena that had witnessed the persecution of Christians became their most unlikely sanctuary. Pope Benedict XIV, gazing at those crumbling arches in 1749, saw not a ruin but hallowed ground, a place where faith had triumphed over brutality. With a stroke of his pen, he consecrated the Colosseum as a site sanctified by martyrdom, forever ending its exploitation as a quarry. This declaration wasn't just symbolic, it was a seismic shift in how Rome viewed its past. For centuries, the Colosseum's connection to Christianity had been more legend than fact, stories of believers thrown to lions woven into sermons but lacking concrete proof. Yet Benedict's act transformed speculation into sacred tradition. He ordered massive crosses erected in the hypogeum's shadowy passages, marking spots where martyrs were said to have prayed before their deaths. Stations of the cross lined the arena's perimeter, turning what was once a theater of suffering into a pilgrimage route. The timing was no accident. Europe's Enlightenment was in full swing, and ancient monuments faced new threats not from looters but from indifference. By anchoring the Colosseum to Christian heritage, Benedict ensured its survival. Stonecutters who once carted away its marble now faced excommunication, and artists like Piranesi began documenting its decay with reverence rather than exploitation. Yet the irony runs deeper. Modern archaeologists still debate how many Christians actually perished here. Historical records are frustratingly vague. What's undeniable is the Colosseum's metamorphosis from a symbol of imperial terror to one of spiritual resilience. Today, every Good Friday, the Pope leads a candlelit procession through its arches, the flickering flames illuminating the same stones that once reflected the glare of executioners' swords. The Colosseum, once a machine of death, now stands as a monument to the faith that outlived its persecutors, proof that even the mightiest empires can't silence the stories of those who walked into the sand unarmed but never undefeated. Long after the Colosseum's last gladiator fell silent, its bones began whispering secrets to architects and scientists. By the 1700s, this crumbling relic had become an unlikely laboratory where Europe's brightest minds unraveled engineering marvels lost for centuries. Italian physicist Giovanni Polni spent months crouched in its shadowed arches, mapping how every tier of seating from the emperor's box to the farthest upper rows carried sound with crystal clarity. His sketches reveal the genius behind those steep, curved stands. The precise angles acted like a natural megaphone, bouncing voices off stone so efficiently a whisper on the sand could reach the highest seats. Modern acousticians confirmed his findings. The Colosseum's honeycomb structure creates acoustic hotspots, deadening crowd noise while amplifying performers. But the revelations didn't stop at sound. French architect Jacques-Germain Soufflot arrived in 1751 with measuring ropes and parchment, convinced the Colosseum held the key to crowd dynamics. His journals detail how the vomitoria, those sloped passageways, could funnel thousands without bottlenecks, a revelation that reshaped Parisian theaters. Even the seating gradient, a 37-degree incline, proved mathematically ideal for unobstructed sightlines, a formula now standard from Broadway to Tokyo Dome. The arena's influence pulses through every modern stadium. London's 19th century Albert Hall borrowed its elliptical shape to distribute sound evenly, while Boston's Fenway Park mirrored the Colosseum's intimate, vertical seating to keep fans on top of the action. Today's architects still pilgrimage here, laser scanners in hand, decoding how Roman builders balanced scale and intimacy. The Colosseum didn't just entertain the past, it engineered the future, proving that even in ruin, its lessons refuse to fade into silence. Beneath the Colosseum's shadow lies another layer of history, one not of spectacle but of quiet reverence. Just a stone's throw from the arena's blood-soaked sands, early Christians carved out a network of catacombs, turning the earth below Rome into a sacred refuge for their dead. These tunnels, snaking through the soft tufa rock, became silent witnesses to a faith that endured persecution. While gladiators fought above, believers gathered below, laying their martyrs to rest in narrow niches sealed with terracotta and inscribed with symbols of hope, fish, anchors, and the Cairo, their quiet defiance etched in stone. The connection between the Colosseum and these catacombs is more than geographic, it's deeply symbolic. Many of those buried here were victims of the arena's cruelty, their bodies denied proper burial by Roman law. Yet under cover of darkness, fellow Christians risked imprisonment or death to recover fragments of their remains, smuggling them into these labyrinthine passages. One particularly poignant chamber, the Crypt of the Martyrs, holds relics believed to belong to those executed during Nero's persecutions, their bones wrapped in linens dyed imperial purple, a subtle mockery of the emperor's grandeur. Archaeologists have uncovered chilling evidence of this clandestine devotion. In the catacombs of San Callisto, less than a mile from the Colosseum, inscriptions reference the games as a cause of death alongside prayers for divine justice. Some niches contain handfuls of sand stained with blood, likely collected from the arena floor as holy relics. The catacombs weren't just tombs, they were archives of resistance, where the stories of those who perished in the Colosseum were preserved in whispers and coded art. What's often overlooked is how these tunnels mirror the hypogeum structure. Both are subterranean worlds of corridors and chambers, one designed for death as entertainment, the other for death as dignity. While the hypogeum echoed with the clatter of chains and roars of beasts, the catacombs resonated with psalms sung in hushed tones. The contrast couldn't be starker. Beneath the same city, two underworlds, one a stage for imperial terror, the other a sanctuary for the terrorized. Modern visitors seldom connect these dots, but the early Christians knew. They called the Colosseum the eternal temple of Satan, yet they buried their dead within its shadow as an act of spiritual reclaiming. Today, walking from the arena's roar to the catacombs' hush, you trace the path of a faith that turned Rome's brutality into a cornerstone of its survival. The sand may have forgotten their screams, but the stones remember their names. Today's weathered gray facade hides a startling truth. The Colosseum was once a riot of color, its arches gleaming with red ochre, Egyptian blue, and gilded details that blazed under the Mediterranean sun. Modern laser scans reveal traces of pigment clinging to shadowed crevices, ghostly fingerprints of an era when this arena wasn't just grand but gloriously opulent. Imagine sunlight glancing off polished marble statues nestled in every archway, gods, emperors, and mythical heroes watching over the crowds with painted eyes. The upper tiers weren't bare concrete but swathed in vibrant awnings, their stripes dyed with Tyrian purple and saffron yellow, fluttering like the sails of some celestial ship. Archaeologists have pieced together this chromatic puzzle from flakes of surviving plaster. The arena floor's perimeter was lined with crimson panels, mimicking the imperial palace's grandeur, while the podium where senators sat shimmered with green and gold tessellated glass, an ancient version of luxury box seating. Even the columns weren't spared from embellishment. Their capitals were once dipped in gold leaf, catching the light with every shift of the sun. This wasn't just decoration, it was psychological theater. The colors amplified the spectacle, turning battles into living paintings where blood on sand blended deliberately with the red-tinged walls. Yet time and looters stripped this kaleidoscope away. Medieval lime burners scorched marble statues into mortar, rain leached pigments from the stone, and centuries of pollution layered the arches in grime. What remains today is a monochrome shadow, like a fresco left out in the storm. But look closer, near the third level's doorway, a patch of ochre still clings stubbornly to the travertine, and if you run your fingers along certain grooves, you'll feel the ghostly ridges where gilding once flaked away. The most haunting absence, the colossal bronze statue of Nero turned Saul that once loomed beside the amphitheater. Its gilded face would have reflected the Colosseum's own brilliance, doubling the spectacle's radiance. Now, all that lingers is the memory of color, an echo of an empire that didn't just build in stone, but painted its power across the skyline. Standing in the arena today, it's hard not to squint and try to glimpse that lost world, where every sunset set the Colosseum ablaze not with age, but with gold. The sun may have set on the Colosseum's ancient spectacles, but modern technology has found a way to resurrect its brilliance after dark, through breathtaking light shows that bathe the ruins in the glow of history. Picture this: as twilight deepens over Rome, the arena's weathered arches suddenly blaze to life, not with torches, but with high-definition projections that transport viewers back to the year 80 AD. Gladiators materialize on the sand, their shadows dueling across millennia-old stone. Chariots race around the upper tiers, their virtual wheels kicking up dust that hasn't stirred in centuries. And for a few mesmerizing hours, the Colosseum sheds its ruins like a ghost stepping back into flesh. These illuminations aren't just artistic flourishes, they're meticulously researched reconstructions. Historians and digital artists collaborate to ensure every projected detail, from the stitching on a gladiator's leather straps to the gilding on Emperor Titus's ceremonial robes, mirrors archaeological evidence. Infrared scans of the Colosseum's surface map imperfections in the stone, allowing projectors to align images with pinpoint accuracy. The result: a virtual time machine where viewers can witness the arena's inaugural games as if standing in the crowd, from the scentless smoke of sacrificial fires to the spectral roar of 50,000 voices. The most striking moments come when the projections peel back layers of history. In one sequence, the outer walls dissolve to reveal the hypogeum's labyrinth beneath, its trapdoors snapping open as holographic lions leap toward the sky. Another scene floods the arena with water, digitally reenacting the naval battles that once dazzled Rome. But the true showstopper is the recreation of the velarium. The massive awning unfurls across the night sky in shimmering light, its canvas rippling with virtual wind. Yet these displays aren't mere nostalgia. They serve a deeper purpose, confronting the Colosseum's duality as both a marvel of engineering and a site of suffering. During commemorations like the International Day Against the Death Penalty, the stones glow blood red, the names of ancient victims scrolling across the arches. Other illuminations highlight its evolution from pagan stage to Christian shrine, from medieval fortress to modern icon. When dawn breaks, the projections fade, leaving only the silent ruins. But for those who have witnessed these luminous resurrections, the Colosseum never fully returns to gray. It lingers in the mind's eye, alive with color and motion, proof that even after 2,000 years, this arena still knows how to command an audience. The year 1349 delivered the Colosseum its most devastating blow, not from barbarian armies or plundering popes, but from the very earth beneath its foundations. A catastrophic earthquake ripped through Rome that September, its tremors so violent they toppled entire neighborhoods. But the Colosseum suffered uniquely, with its entire southern section crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. Today, that jagged silhouette, one side standing proud, the other a skeletal wreck, isn't just an accident of history. It's a geological detective story waiting to be unraveled. The secret lies beneath the surface. The Colosseum sits atop an ancient riverbed where millennia of sediment deposited layers of soft alluvial soil. When the quake struck, these waterlogged soils underwent liquefaction, a phenomenon where solid ground momentarily behaves like quicksand. The southern half, built over the thickest deposits, bore the brunt of this instability. Picture the moment: massive travertine blocks, each weighing several tons, suddenly tilting as their foundation turned to slurry. The outer ring's arches collapsed in a domino effect, their carefully balanced keystones tumbling into a heap. But why did the northern side survive? Here, the bedrock rises closer to the surface, providing a sturdier anchor. Roman engineers, unaware of seismic science, had unknowingly given the structure a fighting chance through material choices. The northern facade used higher quality travertine, denser and more evenly quarried, while the southern sections incorporated cheaper tough stone, a volcanic rock prone to cracking under stress. When the quake's waves radiated through Rome, this disparity became fateful. The aftermath reshaped the Colosseum's destiny. The fallen southern arcades became a quarry for Renaissance builders, their stones repurposed for churches and palaces. Meanwhile, the intact northern side became an accidental blueprint for later architects studying Roman engineering. Cracks visible today tell another tale. Iron clamps originally binding the stones were pried out by medieval metal hunters, weakening the structure further. Modern seismic scans reveal just how close the entire amphitheater came to total collapse. The surviving section leans slightly northwest, its columns deformed by centuries of aftershocks. Yet it stands as a testament to both nature's power and Roman resilience, a monument that survived empire's fall, only to be humbled by the planet itself. The missing southern curve isn't just rubble, it's a lesson written in stone about the ground we build on, and the forces no empire can fully tame. Among the crumbling arches and weathered stone, the Colosseum harbors a secret more vibrant than its blood-soaked past, a living, breathing garden of over 600 plant species clinging to its cracks and crevices. This accidental paradise didn't sprout overnight. It's the work of centuries, a botanical time capsule where seeds from across the ancient world took root. Picture this: delicate yellow fumitory blossoms peeking between mortar lines, wild figs twisting through fallen vaults, and patches of rare orchids flourishing where gladiators once bled. The sheer diversity is staggering, from towering elder trees to tiny mosses, their roots weaving through stone like nature's own restoration project. The origins of this floral menagerie are as dramatic as the games themselves. Many plants trace their lineage back to exotic animals paraded through the arena. Seeds hitchhiking in the fur of African lions, the dung of Asian elephants, or the hay bedding of Mesopotamian bears. Others arrived via the wind or birds, but the most fascinating specimens have Mediterranean roots, suggesting they grew from dates and olives tossed to the crowd during imperial feasts. Botanists still debate the Colosseum palm, a rare species whose DNA hints at North African origins, possibly planted by an emperor wanting to showcase his conquests. By the 1800s, scientists realized the ruins had become a unique ecological zone. The microclimate within its walls, shielded from wind, rich in nitrogen from centuries of decay, and warmed by the sun-baked stone, created pockets where plants from disparate continents thrived side by side. A Roman botanist named Richard Deacon catalogued 420 species in 1855, including medicinal herbs like valerian and nightshade. Their uses likely passed down from ancient physicians who treated wounded gladiators. Today, researchers continue to uncover surprises. Some plants, like the scarlet pimpernel, are now extinct in the surrounding countryside but persist stubbornly here, their seeds preserved in the Colosseum's nooks like botanical refuges. Others, like the invasive prickly pear, tell a darker story hitchhiking to Rome on Spanish galleons centuries after the arena's heyday. The walls even host a carnivorous sundew, its sticky leaves trapping insects just as the hypogeum's traps once ensnared beasts. This ever-evolving garden isn't just a curiosity, it's a living lesson in resilience. Where emperors sought to dominate nature with imported beasts and engineered floods, nature ultimately claimed the last word, stitching life back into the stone with roots and petals. The Colosseum's flora doesn't just grow, it remembers, each leaf a quiet rebellion against the arena's legacy of control. Hollywood has long been obsessed with the Colosseum's timeless drama, but filming inside this fragile relic comes with challenges that would make even a seasoned director sweat. When Ridley Scott brought Gladiator to life in 2000, he wasn't allowed to shoot inside the actual arena instead. A painstaking replica was built in Malta at a cost of over $1 million. But a handful of productions have braved the Colosseum's strict protections for those priceless establishing shots. The sci-fi thriller Jumper scored rare access in 2008, using drones to capture Hayden Christensen teleporting onto its moonlit arches, but only after producers agreed to drape the entire structure in protective foam panels to prevent even a scuff from stunt equipment. The rules for filming here read like an imperial decree. No heavy machinery can touch the ancient stone, meaning every cable and light stand must be suspended from freestanding scaffolds. Generators are banned, forcing crews to snake power lines from distant streets. Even the weight of equipment is regulated. Nothing heavier than a handheld camera can rest on the original surfaces without custom-built dispersers to spread the load. When the Lizzie McGuire movie filmed a Vespa chase through the Colosseum's tunnels in 2003, Disney had to hire Italian archaeologists to walk alongside the crew, watching every tire turn to ensure no 1,000-year-old mortar was disturbed. Yet these logistical nightmares haven't dimmed the Colosseum's cinematic allure. Its cameos range from the absurd, like the 2010 Karate Kid remake where Jaden Smith practiced kicks in its shadow, to the historically ironic, such as Pompeii, using CGI to digitally restore the arena while its characters flee a volcanic eruption that actually damaged the real structure. Perhaps the most surreal moment came in 2016, when the Colosseum starred as itself in a Woody Allen comedy, its moonlit arches serving as backdrop for a scene where a time-traveling professor dryly notes, "This place used to be much louder." What most viewers don't see are the compromises forced by preservation. When The Last Legion filmed here in 2007, production designer Carmelo Agate had to recreate the Hypogeum's tunnels on a soundstage because the real ones were too fragile for lighting rigs. Even the iconic Russell Crowe close-ups in Gladiator's opening battle, those were shot against a green screen with the Colosseum digitally inserted later, a fitting metaphor for how modern filmmakers must balance spectacle with stewardship. The irony is rich. An arena built for bloodsport now demands Hollywood handle it with kid gloves. Attending the Colosseum's blood-soaked spectacles cost Romans less than morning bread, because for most citizens the price of admission was absolutely nothing. Unlike modern stadiums charging hundreds for premium seats, ancient Rome's greatest shows operated on an entirely different economy, the currency of political favor. Emperors and wealthy patrons footed the bill as part of their civic duty, buying loyalty with entertainment. Free terracotta shards, essentially season passes, were distributed through neighborhoods, guilds, and military units, ensuring every class from merchant to laborer could claim their spot in the stands. This wasn't generosity, it was calculated control. By filling the arena with grateful citizens, rulers turned games into propaganda, the roar of the crowd echoing their approval like living opinion polls. Yet not all seats were created equal. While commoners jostled for space on the upper tiers' hard wooden benches, Rome's elite lounged in the Imacavia, the first rows encircling the arena where cushions softened marble slabs carved with their names. Archaeologists have identified over 200 of these VIP inscriptions, some still visible today. Senators' seats bore family crests, while Vestal virgins enjoyed shaded boxes with unobstructed views, ancient equivalents of skyboxes. The emperor's private box, the pulvinar, featured purple-draped lounges and hidden staircases for swift exits, its location strategically central so crowds could witness his reactions. Fast forward to today, and the economics have flipped. Modern visitors shell out over €20 for basic entry, roughly a day's wages for many in ancient Rome, with premium guided tours climbing into the hundreds. That marble podium where senators once sat gratis, now cordoned off as a special access area, available only to those willing to pay triple the standard fee. Even the once free upper tiers where plebeians cheered beneath the sun required tickets. The irony is delicious. Where emperors once bankrupted themselves to fill seats, now the Colosseum funds its own preservation through them. Those VIP inscriptions, today's equivalent might be the donor plaques lining restored sections, where modern patrons pay thousands to have their names etched into history, proof that some currencies never go out of style even after 2,000 years. Etched into the very stones of the Colosseum's passageways lies a hidden archive not of emperors or battles, but of the everyday voices who passed through its arches. These ancient graffiti marks, scratched into the mortar by fingernails, knives, and coins, offer a raw and unfiltered window into the arena's human drama. Picture a gladiator tracing his name, Celadus the Thracian, hero of the girls, in a shadowed corridor before stepping into the sunlight, or a spectator idly carving a crude sketch of a charging lion while waiting for the games to begin. Unlike the grand inscriptions commissioned by rulers, these scratches and scrawls are the marginalia of history, preserved by chance and the sheer endurance of Roman concrete. One of the most revealing finds is a series of tallies etched near the gladiator's entrance, each line marking a fight won, a grim scoreboard where survival was measured in notches. Nearby, a boastful inscription declares, Marcus Attilius, novice, defeated Hilarus, veteran of 14 wins. The sheer audacity of this claim leaps across the centuries. Imagine the roar of the crowd as an unknown fighter toppled a seasoned champion, his victory immortalized not in marble but in hurried scratches. Yet not all graffiti celebrated triumph. A particularly sardonic scribble near the senator's seating area mocks a gladiator's humiliating defeat. Crescens the netman couldn't catch a fish if it jumped into his arms. The jab, likely written by a heckling spectator, proves some things never change. Even ancient Romans loved to heckle underperforming athletes. But the most poignant marks aren't about glory or ridicule, they're fragments of ordinary lives intertwined with the arena's spectacle. A child's shaky drawing of a gladiator's shield, a merchant's doodle of a chariot race, even a love-struck admirer's carving of two intertwined hands. These glimpses humanize a place often remembered only for its violence. Archaeologists have even found betting slips scrawled on pottery shards, with odds for popular fighters like Spiculus 10-1. What makes these markings extraordinary is their spontaneity. Unlike official records, they weren't meant to last, just fleeting expressions of excitement, boredom, or bravado. Yet here they remain, a chorus of voices whispering from the walls. The Colosseum's graffiti doesn't just record history, It captures the heartbeat of the crowd, the nerves of the fighters, and the dark humor of a society that could laugh even in the shadow of the sand. Beneath the Colosseum's grand arches, hidden in shadow, ran a network of secret corridors known only to Rome's elite, the imperial equivalent of a backstage pass reserved for emperors and their inner circle. These weren't just service tunnels, they were carefully engineered escape routes and private thoroughfares, allowing rulers to slip in and out of the arena unseen, avoiding both the masses and potential assassins. The most infamous of these passages was the so-called Nero's Stairway, a vaulted corridor rumored to connect the Colosseum directly to the Palatine Hill, where the emperor's sprawling palace complex loomed over the city. Picture this: as 50,000 spectators roared above, Nero could descend into the hypogeum's gloom, his footsteps echoing through a dimly lit tunnel lined with armed guards. Emerging minutes later in the seclusion of his gardens, no plebeian crowds, no unruly senators, just the silent privilege of power. Archaeologists tracing these passages have uncovered tantalizing clues. The tunnel to the Palatine, though partially collapsed, still bears grooves in its floor where a wheeled litter might have rolled, sparing emperors the walk. Walls are scored with niches for torches, spaced at precise intervals to ensure no shadow stretched too long. But the real stroke of genius was the acoustics. The curved ceilings acted like whispering galleries, allowing messages to be passed ahead without runners. A guard at the Colosseum end could murmur a warning, and by the time the emperor's party reached the midpoint, the echo would have already alerted the Palatine sentries. Not all tunnels were for escape. Some served as grand entrances, elevating an emperor's appearance to near-divine spectacle. On days when Commodus planned to fight as a gladiator, he'd avoid the public gates entirely. Instead, he'd take a hidden route that emerged dramatically at arena level, bursting through a trapdoor as if summoned from the underworld itself. The effect was calculated theater. By bypassing the mundane stairs used by mere mortals, he reinforced the illusion of being Hercules incarnate. Yet these passages also harbored darker purposes. During executions or unpopular games, emperors could exit swiftly if the crowd's mood turned. A narrow stairwell near the imperial box, now called the Gate of Death, led straight to a secured courtyard where horses waited saddled for flight. And when intrigue demanded discretion, certain tunnels connected to the city's sewer system, allowing spies or informants to come and go without notice. The Colosseum's grandeur was always a performance, and like any good show, the real drama often happened behind the scenes, the most enduring mystery. Whether Nero's tunnel ever served its rumored purpose, historians debate if he used it to flee the Great Fire of 64 AD, or if later emperors repurposed it for their own secrets. What's certain is that these hidden arteries transformed the Colosseum from a public venue into a stage where power wasn't just displayed, it was staged, with every exit and entrance meticulously choreographed. Today, when you stand in the arena's center, you're not just surrounded by ruins, you're standing atop a labyrinth of whispers where every shadowed archway hints at the games within the games. For centuries, the Colosseum wore a cloak of soot and pollution, until modern technology stepped in to reveal the monument as Rome's ancients once saw it. The 2016 restoration project wasn't just a cleaning, it was a time machine stripping away layers of grime accumulated since the Industrial Revolution. Teams of conservators armed with lasers and biodegradable solvents painstakingly dissolved black crusts formed by centuries of car exhaust, coal smoke, and acid rain, uncovering patches of the original travertine stone gleaming like new. The difference was startling. Where visitors once saw a uniform gray facade, they now found warm honey-toned stone streaked with natural veins, its surface etched with tool marks from Roman masons. Those grooves, invisible for generations, revealed how each block was hand-chiseled to fit perfectly without mortar, a testament to engineering precision lost under the filth of ages. But this wasn't just about aesthetics. The grime was actively eating away at the stone, trapping moisture that caused destructive crystallization. The restoration team faced a delicate balancing act: remove too much and risk erasing historic patina, too little and allow decay to continue. Their solution: a laser system calibrated to vaporize pollutants molecule by molecule without touching the stone beneath. As the work progressed, unexpected details emerged: fossilized shells embedded in the travertine, remnants of the ancient seabed where the stone formed millions of years earlier. Even traces of original red and ochre paint were found in sheltered crevices, hinting at the Colosseum's long-faded vibrancy. The project's ripple effects reached beyond archaeology. For the first time, researchers could study stress fractures without grime obscuring the stone's natural texture, leading to breakthroughs in earthquake resilience techniques. Drones mapped the facade in unprecedented detail, creating a digital twin for future conservators. And in a poetic twist, the cleaned sections now serve as a living classroom, showing visitors the stark contrast between neglected and restored stone, a silent argument for preservation. Yet the work never truly ends. Each rainstorm carries new pollutants, and the battle against time is relentless. Current projects focus on stabilizing the hypogeum's fragile brickwork, where groundwater seepage threatens to undo centuries of history. Modern engineers employ materials inspired by Roman concrete, volcanic ash mixed with lime, to blend durability with authenticity. The Colosseum's caretakers face a paradox: every repair, no matter how careful, leaves its own mark. But perhaps that's fitting for a monument that has always been more than stone. It's a living chronicle, where even the scars of restoration become part of its story. The Colosseum transforms as dusk falls, its ancient stones exhaling the heat of the day while shadows stretch across the hypogeum's labyrinth. But for those holding tickets to the exclusive moonlight tours, the real magic begins when the sun vanishes, because this is when the arena sheds its museum persona and becomes a time portal. Armed with flickering torches, not the sterile glow of flashlights, modern visitors descend into the same underground passages where gladiators once paced, their footsteps echoing against brick worn smooth by centuries of fear and anticipation. The effect is immediate. The dance of flame against travertine conjures long-dead whispers, the play of light and dark mimicking how this space would have looked to a slave hauling cages of lions or a condemned prisoner counting their last breaths. These nocturnal expeditions unlock details daylight obscures. Guides point out grooves in the walls where oil lamps once sat, their soot still staining the stone. In certain corridors, the torchlight reveals scratches left by frantic animals, parallel streaks where claws scraped for purchase against the damp bricks. The air itself feels heavier, thick with the musk of aged mortar and something more primal, as if the stones remember the adrenaline that once saturated this space. One particularly eerie stop is the Gate of Death, where fallen gladiators were dragged. Visitors often report an unnatural chill here, even on Rome's warmest nights. Unlike daytime's crowded pathways, the night tours cap groups at 20, creating an intimacy that magnifies every creak and whisper. Guides share lesser-known horrors, how certain trapdoors were engineered to amplify the sound of screaming, or how water channels doubled as echo chambers to simulate thunder during mythological reenactments. Occasionally, a bat will dart through the torchlight, sparking gasps, a fleeting reminder that nature has reclaimed these tunnels in ways Nero could never have imagined. The climax comes when the group emerges onto the moonlit arena floor, standing where thousands once bled, with the Colosseum's skeletal arches looming like broken teeth against the sky. The weight of history becomes visceral. Guides extinguish the torches briefly, plunging visitors into darkness, a momentary taste of the hypogeum's perpetual night. When the flames reignite, the relief is palpable, but so is the dawning realization. Every shadow just witnessed is a fragment of a world where terror and wonder shared the same stage. Archaeologists note that these tours aren't just theater, they're sensory archaeology. The flickering light exposes weathering patterns invisible under electric bulbs, helping conservators identify areas needing repair. Meanwhile, visitors leave with more than photos. They carry the uncanny sense of having brushed against time itself, where the past isn't studied but momentarily inhabited. The Colosseum's daylight crowds see a monument. Those who walk its depths by torchlight meet a living, breathing beast. Even as the Colosseum stands as a monument to ancient power, modern Italy has drawn a line in the sand against its misuse for contemporary agendas. In 2019, the Italian government took an unprecedented step, issuing a formal ban on political groups using the arena as a backdrop for rallies, specifically targeting far-right organizations that had long exploited its imagery. The decision wasn't just bureaucratic, it was a cultural reckoning. For decades, extremist factions had co-opted the Colosseum's grandeur, framing their ideologies through its arches as if the stones themselves endorsed their rhetoric. Picture rallies where torches flickered against travertine, where chants about racial purity echoed where gladiators once fought, a grotesque distortion of history. The ban severed this link, declaring the Colosseum a monument for humanity, not a stage for division. The move carried deep historical irony. This was the same arena where emperors once staged propaganda spectacles, where victories over foreign tribes were celebrated with parades of captured warriors. Now the state was reclaiming its narrative from those who twisted it into symbols of exclusion. Archaeologists cheered the decision, noting how fringe groups had cherry-picked Roman iconography eagle standards, Latin mottos, while ignoring Rome's actual diversity, where senators hailed from Africa and Syria, and gladiators came from every corner of the empire. The Colosseum's own stones refute purity myths. Its mortar contains fragments from 3 continents, just as its crowds once did. Enforcement proved ingenious. Authorities didn't just post signs, they weaponized light. New illumination schemes bathed the facade in the colors of the Italian Constitution at key dates, visually reclaiming it as democratic space. When a German far-right group tried to circumvent the ban by posing as tourists in 2020, their photos were swiftly scrubbed from social media under Italy's cultural heritage laws. The message was clear: this isn't just architecture, it's civic identity. Yet the debate lingers. Some historians argue the ban sanitizes history, that the Colosseum's true lesson is how easily symbols of unity become tools of oppression. Others counter that protecting its meaning isn't censorship but curation. The arena's long afterlife, from bloodsport to pilgrimage site to tourist magnet, proves symbols evolve. Today, when the moon rises over its arches, they cast shadows not on rallies, but on quiet crowds contemplating how easily arenas become mirrors, reflecting the best and worst of those who stand within them. The Colosseum's ancient arena floor, lost to centuries of excavation and decay, may soon regain its heartbeat not through imagination, but through cutting-edge engineering. Italy's boldest preservation project yet aims to install a retractable high-tech floor by 2023, offering visitors the chance to stand precisely where gladiators and beasts once clashed. This isn't just a walkway, it's a time machine crafted from lightweight carbon fiber and Accoya wood, materials chosen to mimic the original sand-covered timber while protecting the fragile hypogeum tunnels below. Picture the mechanism in motion, sleek panels silently sliding apart like modern trapdoors, revealing glimpses of the labyrinth beneath before seamlessly reforming into an unbroken surface. For the first time in over a century and a half, the Colosseum's full 3-dimensional drama, the interplay between arena and underworld, will be palpable. The design pays homage to Roman ingenuity while embracing contemporary innovation. Architects studied ancient accounts of the original floor's construction, a layered sandwich of wood, sand, and canvas that could be replaced swiftly between events. Modern engineers adapted this concept with climate-controlled panels that expand and contract to prevent warping, embedded with non-invasive sensors to monitor structural stress. When fully extended, the floor will replicate the arena's exact dimensions, down to the slight convex curvature that ensured blood drained toward the edges rather than pooling underfoot. At the push of a button, sections will retract to expose the hypogeum's elevators and cages, creating a dynamic museum experience where visitors toggle between past and present. But this project isn't without controversy. Some archaeologists argue the floor's weight, even distributed, could accelerate wear on the already fragile brick supports. Others fear it sanitizes the Colosseum's brutality, that walking comfortably where men once fought for their lives risks turning history into theme park entertainment. The Ministry of Culture has countered these concerns with strict usage protocols. No more than 50 visitors allowed on the floor simultaneously, no high heels or sharp objects, and mandatory protective shoe coverings to prevent micro-abrasions. Special evening events will simulate historic conditions with controlled lighting and audio, the creak of pulley systems, the distant roar of crowds, but stop short of reenacting violence. The symbolic resonance runs deep. For decades, tourists peered down into the hypogeum like spectators at a zoo, separated from history by guardrails and vertical distance. The new floor collapses that divide, quite literally leveling the perspective between modern observer and ancient participant. Early test walkers describe uncanny sensations, the slight give of the panels mimicking trampled sand, the way sound dampens as it did when the original floor absorbed footsteps and bloodstains. Educational overlays projected onto the surface will highlight ghostly outlines of trapdoors and rotating stages, augmented reality breathing life into blueprints. When completed, this innovation will achieve what no textbook or documentary could, letting the 21st century touch the first without a glass barrier. Visitors won't just see the Colosseum, they'll stand in its gut, feeling the weight of where empire met spectacle, where sand absorbed both cheers and last breaths. The floor's retractable nature ensures the hypogeum remains visible when needed, a reminder that glory and suffering shared the same foundation. In a stroke of poetic justice, the same engineering prowess that built the arena now resurrects its heartbeat, proving some stages never truly go dark. They just await their next act. From naval battles staged in a flooded arena to trapdoors launching lions into the spotlight, the Colosseum stands as history's most dazzling paradox, a monument where cruelty and genius were carved from the same stone. Think about it, this was a place where emperors could flood the floor with water for epic sea battles, then drain it overnight to host gladiators fighting to the death. Where elevators powered by enslaved laborers hoisted exotic beasts into the sunlight, dazzling crowds with engineering so advanced it wouldn't be matched for centuries. Where 50,000 spectators could exit in minutes thanks to vomitoria corridors so efficient modern stadiums still study them. The Colosseum didn't just host spectacles, it was the spectacle, a masterclass in control where every drop of blood spilled served a calculated purpose, to awe, to intimidate, to remind Rome who held the power. Yet for all its horrors, the arena's legacy is oddly hopeful. The same stones that echoed with screams now draw millions who come not for violence but to marvel at human ingenuity. The hypogeum's tunnels, once a stage for executions, today hum with whispered reverence. Even the name itself, born from a tyrant's colossal ego, became a symbol of resilience, surviving empire, earthquakes, and plunder to stand as a beacon of what endures when ambition meets artistry. So, which detail haunts you the most? The fact that this architectural titan rose in just 8 years with no modern tools. That its retractable awning, the velarium, could shade a crowd twice the size of a modern football stadium, or that beneath its floor, slaves and animals moved like pieces on some macabre chessboard, their suffering engineered for maximum drama. Drop your pick in the comments. We love geeking out over these ancient wonders, and if the Colosseum's secrets left you hungry for more, don't stop here. Tap that playlist for deep dives into other historical mysteries, from the pyramids' hidden chambers to the lost city of Pompeii. History isn't just about dates and dust, it's about the wild, unpredictable stories waiting to shake how you see the world. Ready for the next adventure? Your journey starts now.